Nation state cybercrime. Even the name sounds scary. And it is a scary subject. These aren't just your run-of-the-mill hackers. These are territories that are actually after our infrastructure, our airports, our train stations, the things that make America operate. Hi, I'm Larry Kortkamp, and this is Biz Pointz TV, the show that introduces you to new and trending business topics, smart technologies, and the people that are making an impact on our local communities. Our subject today is serious. It's about hacking at a different level. We're going to ask questions that'll get us a lot of answers that you need in order to operate your business and make it safer. We'll get started in just a minute when we return.
Create a stronger and more dynamic business. Larry Kortkamp, founding partner at the Kortkamp Group, talks with industry insiders about trending topics moving the needle for local business today. Here's your host, Larry Kortkamp.
Hi, and welcome back. Before we continue with today's show, I'd like to remind everybody that Biz Pointz TV is actually filmed in front of a live studio audience. And we're going to let you know how to come down and join us anytime we do a recording day. We'll put that on at the end of the segment today. So we're very lucky because our subject today is cyber crime. But it's cyber crime at a different level. This is nation state. These are countries doing work they shouldn't be doing. And the story that we're reading in our newspapers this morning is a great actually case study of that. It deals with Microsoft, big company on a big level. Our guest today is Jessica Nemmers. Jessica, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Larry.
Jessica's actually the perfect candidate to talk about this with us.
I appreciate that.
She's a respected author and speaker and talks in her job currently as a chief security officer. You are very well qualified to talk about this. And actually, nation state cybersecurity is your wheelhouse, is it not?
Yes, yes. Especially around both manufacturing and now I'm in the financial sector, so absolutely.
So I teased a little bit about what happened today.
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell our audience exactly what we were just talking about.
Yeah, so this morning and most of the morning shows and on the news, we're talking about Microsoft and coming out and announcing that they've once again experienced hacks from Russian hackers. And since July of this year in 2021, they've alerted over 609 companies that they have been attacked over 22,000 times. And this is just by Russian hackers. That is more than the last 3 years of all hackers combined from any country. So it's a very focused attack, and they've gotten a lot more sophisticated. Instead of trying to go one company at a time, they're really focused on the one software that everyone uses. They can get a lot of damage, a lot of surveillance if they have control through, say, a Microsoft product, or last year it was SolarWinds.
And you were laughing at me this morning because we were kind of talking about this before we came on the air, and you said these aren't just your guys in hoodies in the dark room.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Well, this is the same as maybe the mafia in the United States back in the day. So this is organized crime. They're very sophisticated, they're well educated, and they could or could not be backed by the government. I'm definitely not one to say, but we've seen evidence that these governments may turn a blind eye, or they outright will fund them or support them. So yeah, these are not individuals. They're groups, and they're very well funded. And every single time one of our companies, our major companies in the United States, for instance, pays that ransom, it funds them, so they continue to get stronger.
And really, before we had you on, I gave a lot of thought to this because our program is geared towards small businesses, right? And businesses in general. And as a nation state category, it kind of is a little bit off the base of what we normally talk about. Right. But this is really a good situation to drive home the fact that it is every business.
Absolutely.
And you often say we need to protect ourselves one business at a time.
Yeah, right now, yes.
But if you don't know the situation occurs, you don't know.
Yeah, you don't. And a lot of companies over the last few years, well, we're too small, they won't target us. And I think what they don't realize is they're not targeting company by company. These are a very blanketed spray attacks on any company that has a presence on the internet. If you've got an internet protocol address, if you've got a website, then you're at risk, no matter how big or small you are. And we know that in the United States, 80 to 90% of our businesses are small to medium businesses.
That's correct.
So that's a lot of damage
if
we're not
damage. And they're not necessarily using them necessarily to get to that particular business.
Right.
They could be using them as a leapfrog to get to something else or get into something else.
Absolutely.
And we talked about not really focusing as much on ransom, although that's a huge part of what they do. The other part that doesn't get a lot of press is these other areas that they attack.
Yeah.
Particularly at the city level.
Absolutely. So it is to make money, but some of it could be pure surveillance, understanding, especially during SolarWinds, we had, I believe, 10 government agencies that were infiltrated. So they're doing surveillance. They're getting our secrets. They're understanding our intellectual property. So there's other aspects of that. And again, if they're going to be targeting infrastructure like our water supply or our grid, that's really to get our attention and to create chaos. So we have to be careful with that, for sure. But I think businesses need to be aware that there are things that they can do, and especially just simply understanding that you are at risk is really the first one. Because whether you're a large company or a nonprofit or a city government, cyber is going to probably be in your top 3 risks to your operations.
So in my business, as a consultant, I work with a lot of MSPs, managed service providers, and these actually are the frontline troops for small business, right? They're the IT specialists that come out and really do the actual hands-on work for many of these companies, whether it's, and it's not just small companies, it's companies up the level, up to enterprise. Yeah. How do we get those people more, are what we're trying to teach them are better tools? How do we really defend ourselves against some of these very sophisticated attacks?
Yeah, they have really stepped up their game on the hacker side, and it happened over 4th of July weekend. They attacked the CASTANEDA software, and that's what managed service providers use to remote into companies to provide their IT support, whether it's patching or updates and things like that. So in one weekend, we had 1 million endpoints compromised around the world. So I think this is where businesses that are working with managed service providers, and I believe everyone should. It's very difficult and expensive to have your own IT department and your own security department, but this is really going along with third-party risk. We've got to be having different conversations with our MSPs. Hey, what are you guys doing to keep your software in check? What are you doing to verify that it's safe when you're providing services to us?
Are there different levels of education for these people now? I mean, you're talking about a different level of hacker. Right. Are there different levels of education or different MSP groups that are studying or looking more into this type of hacking?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're becoming more aware. They're having to up their game on questioning down that supply chain. These are literally supply chain attacks. So if your MSP, for instance, is using SolarWinds, well, SolarWinds is what was hacked and then provided those compromised software through the supply chain. So we need to keep our threat intelligence open in the community. We need to keep talking about that. But we also really need to be talking to each other about what we're doing to be as aware as we can. If something looks wrong, looking at logs, looking at alerts. And from the business side, we need to continue to educate our employees. A lot of times they're worried about endpoint security and firewalls, but we can do everything right. But if our employees are not educated, if they're clicking on a bad link or a phishing email, your whole company could be compromised.
And that's such a silly thing. We talk about this, we've been talking about this for years.
Absolutely.
That one simple thing, clicking on what you're not supposed to click on.
Yeah.
And we have so many experts that come on and say, we tell them that, they say they understand that, and 86% of them still click.
They still do.
On the wrong
and they're
stuff.
getting more sophisticated. These are not those emails of some Nigerian prince offering you a lot of money. They're mimicking, they could have gotten into your email system, and they are mimicking realistic emails.
And they're very good. I
They're
mean, some of
very
these you
good.
would think it is FedEx, or you would
Yes.
think it's UPS tracking a package, or you would think it's the federal government talking to you
Absolutely.
about your taxes. So you're exactly correct. This education level, not only for the technical people involved, but
Yeah.
just us schmucks that are out there working our jobs.
Well, you guys are the front line.
Yeah, we've got to be very sophisticated in what we do.
Absolutely.
All this information is great. I'm glad we're talking about it. We're going to take a quick break,
Okay.
get a word from some of our sponsors. But again, I'd like to take this moment to thank some of our sponsors. Since we're talking on MSPs, we've got a great MSP for us. It's youritanswers.com. And we are our wonderful set designers, office furniture source, great people, and of course our home here at Grace Point Media. We'll be back in just a minute. Enjoy these words from our sponsors, and we'll continue our conversation with Jessica.
My American dream is to help you stay healthy and energized so you can live your American dream.
Our American dream is equipping future generations of American dreamers.
My American dream is to protect my community so they can live their American dream.
My American dream is to bring you some spice and flavor to your life.
Our American dream is ensuring what's most valuable to you.
Our American dream is creating opportunities for healthcare providers so they can have their American dreams.
My American dream is serving our business community and advocating for all of your American dreams.
Business runs on technology, and human beings are creatures of habit. Unfortunately, not all our habits are good. Technology, when it works, is supposed to make our lives easier, creating routines that allow us to protect customer data, track our progress, forecast the future, communicate better, and move much faster. So, you need technology solutions that work when you're not working, or simply not paying attention. Smart technology solutions, making the complicated uncomplicated.
Hi, and welcome back. Today, our guest is Jessica Nemmers, and we're talking about cybercrime, and it's getting worse, and it's getting at different levels today. So one thing we didn't talk about in our earlier segment, Jessica, was on the small business side, or really any business side, risk mitigation. Number one, what does that even mean? And how does that help us, or how can we prevent some of these things? And really, how do we prevent our business from being toppled by this stuff? I know you're a great speaker and you go everywhere.
Thank you.
And I'm sure this is covered in with some of your topics. So lead us down this path. What is risk mitigation and how does it help us?
Okay, so not too long ago, cybersecurity was more about the technology. Do we have the antivirus, anti-malware? Do we have the firewalls? Do we have this and that? But that was really before the digital age and cloud computing. So most of our networks were behind this moat and this wall and the castle, and that's how we were protecting. But cyber is now more about business risk. It's the risk to the business operation. It's the risk to the business's data, your customers' data, which, once your customers get breached from you, that's a reputational risk, and many times it puts smaller companies out of business or even larger ones. So it's understanding what is our risk, because this is not a one-size-fits-all. We need to know where we could be compromised. And then from there, again, if we're talking about working with a managed service provider, that's where you take the knowledge of business risk and say, what solutions can help mitigate that risk or lower our risk of attack? Or really, it's not the risk of attack, because you're going to get attacked if you're going to get attacked. I always say, really, this is lowering the risk of business disruption due to a cyber attack or a data breach.
I think that's a good point you just made, and we kind of did it offhanded, but it's not really a question of if anymore that you're going to. It's when. Yeah, and you're going to, and to the degree that it impacts your business. Right. And I think that's always been a kind of a stopping point for people when they talk about getting outside help. Yeah. The reason I'm not going to, because I can't afford it. But that's really the only way I'm going to stop this. And then they hire somebody and they think, that's it, I'm done and I'll never be attacked again. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. But it is a necessary step in order for you to make progress in your business and protecting your data. And we have industries that's very important in.
Absolutely.
If we get involved in our medical communities and HIPAA restraints and other things in our financial communities. So these businesses actually are more attuned to it than others,
right,
because their punishments are a little bit more real for them.
Right. Well, there's more government regulation. So absolutely, with the regulation in finance and healthcare, we do have more mature cybersecurity strategy. It's really in areas such as manufacturing that it's not as sophisticated because the dollars are tight there. Coming from a manufacturing company where I established their security program, we realized that, you know, every dime was putting product on a truck. Should we be spending it on cybersecurity? But this summer, Colonial Pipeline was, you know, people were calling that a wake-up call, and I was saying, hey, the phone's been ringing for years. That was not a wake-up call. But that was really one of the first times that the average consumer really felt the power and the punishment of cybercrime. So,
and it's in that area we talked about earlier. This isn't just, although ransom was part of it, but they were attacking infrastructure. This is actually delivering a service to we as a nation that got
and shortly after was JBS, which was a meat producer, and then we saw our meat prices go higher. So there is, with so many things, we're all connected. I think that's the biggest thing, is we are all connected through the internet. We are all data-driven. Every company has some sort of data that could be very damaging if it were to get out or compromised. So with everyone so interconnected, these supply chain attacks are becoming more of a problem because they have mass destruction, which, you know, back in 2016, we were seeing like one company at a time and they weren't as connected.
Yeah, we see it in our airline system when they attack a particular provider that helps keep track of even just something as simple as the passenger itineraries or anything else. It shuts down airlines.
Absolutely.
And that can cripple the nation big time.
Absolutely.
So keep thinking about our holidays, our national holidays come up, or different areas that are affected at different times. We haven't even touched on education and some of the other things that are really at great risk. And the one that bothers me the most is along the colonial lines, because it's our grid structure, right? It's delivering power to what we do. And those are very vulnerable
Absolutely.
situations.
They were, and I always talk about this, again, coming from manufacturing, a lot of these power plants in the grid, they were not built to protect against cybercrime. They were built years and years ago. And some of the older technology is very vulnerable. So when I'm, you know, talking to other groups and other companies, especially in the manufacturing space, it's how do we take that inner really vulnerable operational technology, the OT network, and protect it, because you've got to protect your inner core because it wasn't made to withstand a cyber attack.
And there's really not, I mean, contrary to popular belief, there's probably not a huge demarcation line between protecting against nation-state cybercrime and the run-of-the-mill. It's all safety precautions that have to be placed on your business or
Absolutely.
whatever, right?
Absolutely. So again, understanding your risk, applying the solutions to mitigate those risks, educating your employees, and then just doing some of the basic cyber hygiene. Having multi-factor authentication, talk to your MSP about that. I always talk about MFA, but you know, most of the banks have it now where it sends the text to your phone and you have to type in that code, because there's so many ways to steal a password or guess a password, especially for companies still using short passwords. But so things like that, some basic protective measures go a long way. And a lot of companies believe that their cybersecurity strategy has to cost millions of dollars, and it doesn't. So it's not a guarantee, but it really does lower that risk, again, in business disruption or reputational damage.
And again, we make fun of those little things, the password thing. And
Absolutely.
we actually had a mutual friend of ours on the show not long ago, Mary Scarmardo, and she does a lot of work with cities and municipalities, that kind of thing. And she recommended something silly as far as just using a phrase rather than a sentence, rather than us trying to think of these complex, you know, widget things that we come up with. Something just as simple as a phrase can be almost unbreakable, because they're so much more complicated for the algorithms or whatever it is that's trying to figure these things out.
Yes, 14 characters or longer, so yes.
But you mentioned some businesses don't allow longer. What is the What's the shortest one today? Most of these are quite long, are they not?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is possibly older technology can't accept longer than maybe a 10-character password. So that's where you put other mitigating controls in front of it. Again, like multi-factor authentication or segmenting it off in the network, you know, some things like that. Really looking, I always look at a company and protecting them like you protect your house. So what are you doing for your perimeter? What alarms do you have? What cameras do you have? What doors can be locked? And just kind of looking at the areas where you're storing your crown jewels, you know, and protecting those first.
And they're hitting us at our weakest link. So people forget,
Absolutely.
I'm at my office computer, it's protected well, I've got everything I do.
Yeah.
They just don't realize right next to them is their iPhone and their pads over here,
Yes.
and their kid was playing some game on that last night or some face widget that they were doing, and now you've brought that into the office that's speaking on the same connections to what you do. So you have to be situationally aware, right, of what's going on about you. And all these places, the IoT, the Internet of Things.
Oh yeah, we haven't even touched on that.
Yeah.
Again, in manufacturing, that's
exactly right.
That's a big one with the robotics on the floor and cameras. I've seen surveillance cameras hacked. So there's a famous story about a fish tank thermometer in Vegas being attacked and using that for surveillance. So yeah, it's a lot. It seems overwhelming, but again, if we can break it down and just look at our biggest risks first and apply the solutions to those, we don't have to try to cover everything. So let's, you know, hit the 80% and leave the 20% for later, but let's really look at the heavy hitting areas.
This is kind of a big subject, and I was really concerned about trying to get, I usually try and leave the audience with one central point, but the more we talk, I really do think it's not, it's kind of like therapy, right? You need to get outside help for you.
Absolutely.
There is no other excuse anymore. You've got to get somebody that is trained at what they do. They can bring situations into you, phishing examples so that your employees, training your employees with new tools that they have to do that. There's a lot more, and we'll get into the other one. We're going to take another quick break. Hear another word from our sponsors. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We are also on rumble.com for OBBM. You can catch this program, Biz Pointz TV, on rumble.com. When you do get on there, please give us a rumble and share it with your friends. We'll be back in just a minute for more with Jessica.
90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
My American dream is to help you stay healthy and energized so you can live your American dream.
Our American dream is equipping future generations of American dreamers.
My American dream is to protect my community so they can live their American dream.
My American dream is to bring you some spice and flavor to your life.
Our American dream is ensuring what's most valuable to you.
Our American dream is creating opportunities for healthcare providers so they can have their American dreams.
My American dream is serving our business community and advocating for all of your American dreams.
Business runs on technology, and human beings are creatures of habit. Unfortunately, not all our habits are good. Technology, when it works, is supposed to make our lives easier, creating routines that allow us to protect customer data, track our progress, forecast the future, communicate better, and move much faster. So, you need technology solutions that work when you're not working, or simply not paying attention. Smart technology solutions, making the complicated uncomplicated.
Hi, and welcome back. Well, we started the show today talking about nation-state cybercrime, and we're still in there with that one. But actually, as we delve into this subject a little bit more, nation-state cybercrime is cybercrime, and we need to be able to protect ourselves against that. We've talked about risk mitigation. We've talked about a lot of different ways that we can prevent this today. we want to talk a little bit about one more situation. We kind of attributed it a little bit in the last segment, but that's separation of the home and your business, treating your home just like you do your business. That's a kind of a weak spot for most of us. And Jessica, we had one other point that we want to talk to as well. In addition to the home, we want to get into education, how it's infecting our kids, and some of the other IoT is the way we kind of left our last segment.
Okay, yeah.
And IoT, Internet of Things. Yeah. This is the next level, and it's everything talking to everything, and you're never going to know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's not an immediate fix for some of the risks. Other risks, again, if you are in a company, primarily it's in manufacturing where you do have Internet of Things, and again, whether that's scan guns. For most companies, printers, they don't think about updating their printer software and firmware. And again, that's where you would work with your print company or your provider. But I've seen people hack printers because they are computers. They're run with the same insides as computers are in the same type of memory and processing.
And they're on the network.
They are completely on the network.
That's why you can print something from your computer.
Absolutely. And then we've got cameras and things like that. At home, a lot of people, it's kind of interesting, people are asking me all the time, should I be worried about my home camera getting hacked? I don't think it's going to get hacked as much as you are reusing your passwords on your Nest account, on your bank account, on your Facebook account. If you're reusing those passwords and you're compromised somewhere, and pretty much everyone has their data now on the dark web, we've had so many large breaches, they're going to probably enter your camera using your username and password. So again, that multi-factor authentication, if you can turn that on, that's going to give you more protection. So think about that really at home. I always tell people what you have to do at work, you need to do at home. You need to patch your computer, meaning when it says we've got updates, update it. When you need to turn on antivirus, turn it on. And then watch your kids, what they're clicking on and where they are and what sites. There's a lot of gaming sites that have been compromised, and those can put a lot of malware on a computer. So again, having good anti-malware is a good practice. So.
Facial recognition is obviously a big thing that's sweeping the world in a lot of different capacities. And anytime you see one of these image morphing, free apps that you're out there, that's, you're nicely giving them a nice three-dimensional image of your face, and they already have all your personal information, and now they've got it on your kids and your household, everybody. So it's you just, again, it's more situationally aware of what you're doing. I know it seems troublesome, and you don't want to think about it, but you got to think about it. These are things that it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
Yes.
And now there's experts that can actually help you in your home as well. We interviewed one not that long ago on this program. He's an MSP kind of a guy, but he actually specializes in the home market. So I think if anything else, it's asking for help. It's getting specialists, people that are involved in that, and as you mentioned, the software.
Yeah.
Software today is incredible software, the way they can do different things, and they're always working on it. You mentioned updates.
Yes.
If you use the right people and the right software, the updates are thinking far faster and more further ahead than you are. So.
Yes, yes. So we're always, all the Microsoft patches and the updates that come out, these are usually in response to a researcher saying, I was able to hack it, so you need to shore up that weakness in that software. So that's, but a lot of companies have said we can't afford it. But at this point, you can't afford not to, because the average ransom payment is upwards well over $100,000 all the way up to $1 million. There's even companies now that exist only to negotiate ransoms down from the original ask. And that could bankrupt a company right there, or the reputational risk and things like that. So again, you don't have to dedicate your entire budget to cybersecurity, but something needs to be dedicated. And again, that's one of those you can't afford not to do it these days. And that's one thing, insurance really has not followed us on this, but they usually lead the way. They're overwhelmed right now. I was going to say, they don't want to, there's the insurance packages, there's a few out there that are starting to step up to the plate with some information numbers that are enough to cover, but
oftentimes they're just nominal fees. So $50,000 or whatever. It doesn't even come close to touching.
But having something is still better than nothing. But yes, most cyber insurance will not cover the whole ransom.
So if somebody's looking for, let's just talk about outside assistance. Are there things that I want to look for in a company or people that can help me? Do they have to have any certain, I know you're a chief security officer, are there any certifications or things that would help a business owner or consumer to look in the right place for people?
Yeah, I would think as far as a certification for a managed service provider or a security company, I would really look at their reputation in the marketplace. How long have they been in business? A lot of them are newer and they're good, but maybe you want someone more established. And then ask them, do you deal with small to medium businesses? And they usually will provide at least 1 to 2 references, and make those reference calls and ask someone of your size, how has it been working with this company? Do they have your best interest at heart? You know, are they responsive? So there's some really good ones out there. There's a lot of them out there. So, but that's nice because some will say, no, we only deal with larger corporations. Well, that's fine. So just getting the right size first would be a good start.
And asking the right questions, I would think, as well. So it's not just somebody that's going to help you set up a printer or make sure you can do a video call. Security is a whole different realm.
Yes, yes. So a lot of the MSPs do provide security services, but then most of the time I would advise just having that conversation. Maybe engage them for one risk assessment and see what they come back with. Or even scarier, I know, is a penetration test. It's kind of like blood work. They'll really show where your weaknesses are and how quickly they were able to get to maybe crown jewels at your company, whether it be data or intellectual property or maybe damage to possibly, you know, some areas in a manufacturing or healthcare, things like that.
And you mentioned earlier, this is not necessarily voluntarily anymore. Even the state of Texas has passed new legislation recently that if you hold people's data, a certain number of clients or whatever that happens to be, that you are responsible for that data in a whole new way. And they're doing that to make you responsible on liability side and other ways. So get off your rear ends and
yeah, and it's really, I talk about it, it sounds kind of hokey, but it's a culture of security. It's giving every employee at your company the empowerment to help secure the company.
I think that's it. It's discussion. The reason I enjoy talking with you is you're a normal person.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're a normal person, and you don't talk in acronyms, right? This industry is fraught with it, and we need to get it out of that because this is a real life problem and affects real life people, particularly with our clients, which are a lot of smaller businesses. This, as you say, this could be the end of their business.
Absolutely.
So if they're a small accounting firm, it doesn't matter what they are anymore. If they're a hairdresser, it doesn't matter. All these things where anytime you keep customer information, you are at risk, and you don't want that to affect your business in a downside way. You owe it to your customers, you owe it to yourself to be more protective about it.
Absolutely.
And the state, unfortunately, is helping you to be that way.
Yes.
I think I'm not sure on the exact number, but I think it's like $250 or 250 names or whatever it is. That's a normal business has more than 250 names in their database.
Right.
It is real.
Yes.
So what else have we forgotten to mention today?
Gosh, let's see. Again, I think just to kind of summarize some of the biggest things we've talked about: education with your employees, understanding your business risk. Don't worry about the bits and bytes and the acronyms. Understand your business risk. So that's really, what do you hold that maybe somebody else would want to make money or cause disruption, things like that. And then if you don't have that in-house, finding the right help to come in and assess it. And it's a journey. It doesn't all have to be done at once, but moving the needle is very important for any business right now. And again, you're not too small. They'll find you. It's equal opportunity hacking these days, and I think that really surprises a lot of business owners.
Well, thank you again for joining us today. You've given us a lot of great information and ways to protect us.
Thank you.
How can people get in touch with you, Jessica? If they want to find out any more about you, how can they reach you?
I would say find me on LinkedIn. So Jessica Nemmers, I'm the Chief Security Officer at Elevate Credit.
Right here in Fort Worth.
Yes. Yeah, we're based out of Fort Worth.
Very good. Again, thank you for thanking us today. joining us today on OBBM and Biz Pointz TV. Remember to look for us on Rumble. Give us a Rumble if you can. Share it with your friends. We'll be back the next time with another great guest. In the meantime, please keep in touch, and we'll see you soon.
To be a guest or request sponsorship information, contact the Kortkamp Group at 972-824-8001 today. Production and programming information requests for the OBBM network should be directed to Offbeat Business Media by calling 214-714-0495 or send your request to info@offbeatbusiness.com. Biz Pointz TV, podcast, and radio show are produced by Offbeat Business Media for the OBBM network. Unauthorized use of logos, audio, video, or reproduction is strictly prohibited.